know this plan is foolproof, first of all.
Okay, so I've already seen this, but let's... Yay! I get likes on my stuff. Look at that, that's cool. Subscribers are watching me. No, they're not! Get me up to 100, please. The point is...
Suppose you're God. Suppose you have all time, all eternity, and all power at your disposal. You were given the power to dream any dream you wanted to dream every night. What would you do? You could dream any span of time. You could dream 75 years of time in one night, 100 years of time in one night, 1,000 years of time in one night. And it could be anything you wanted. You make up your mind before you went to sleep, tonight I'm going to dream of so-and-so. Well, naturally, you would start out by fulfilling all your wishes. You would have all the pleasures you could imagine, the most marvelous meals, the most entrancing love affairs, the most romantic journeys. You could listen to music such as no mortal has heard and see landscapes beyond our wildest dreams. And for several nights, oh, maybe for a whole month of nights, you would go on that way, having a wonderful time. But then after a while, you'd begin to think, well, I've seen quite a bit. Let's spice it up. Let's have a little adventure. And therefore, you would dream of yourself being threatened by all sorts of dangers. You would rescue princesses from dragons. You would perhaps engage in notable battles. You would be a hero. And then, as time went on, you would dare yourself to do more and more outrageous things. And at some point in the game, you would say, tonight I am going to dream in such a way that I don't know that I'm dreaming, so that you would take the experience of the dream for complete reality. And
here's the thing.
When you woke up, and you really scare yourself.
Here's the thing. The reality that I have sometimes in my dreams is that I have entirely assumed the continuity is true. I am supposed to be here. Whatever I'm experiencing is what is the same as what happened, like, it is the thing that was yesterday. It is the thing that is where I'm expecting myself to be. It's not like I'm suddenly in a place where I'm out of my position, out of my mind, into some other place. But outside of the dream, and sometimes if I lucid dream, I can fully understand that I'm not where I should be. This is how a regular person experiences a dream. And you have to wonder, well, okay, if I'm...
And then, on successive nights, you might dare yourself to experience the most extraordinary things just for the contrast when you woke up. You could, for example, dream yourself in situations of extreme poverty, disease, agony. You could, as it were, work on the vibration of suffering to its most intense point, and then suddenly, whoop, wake up and find it was after all nothing but a dream and everything perfectly okay. And you would say, wow, man, that was a gas.
When people have dreams that are a lot of negative, and then they wake up and everything's fine, no, it's not fine. Your body has experienced trauma. Whether or not it was part of a dream or reality, the body is still experiencing that thing. And depending on if you sleepwalk or whatever else, or depending on how your body really translates everything, when you wake up, you're suddenly awake, startled, shaken, you hate it, you go to your mom and you cry, crap, I had a bad dream. And this is not something that you would likely choose to do. because you know how far it can push you. And even though you have infinite power and whatever else, the limits of stress and everything else isn't going to just do nothing. But that's for a person with a regular body. For a person without a regular body,
Well, how do you know that that's not what you're doing already? You, sitting there with all your problems, with all your whole complicated life situation, listening to me, it may just be the very dream you decided to get into. If you like it, crazy. If you don't like it, what fun it'll be when you wake up.
I like that. What fun will it be when you wake up thing. I do like that whole concept because here's the thing about it. Of course, I already commented on this. Choosing to ignore knowledge and not act on it when everyone else suffers and you have answers. How many times can you dream that? No. The choice is then still you affect others. But we don't value you and me or them. Not that way. Dreams, normally, the rest are still assumed to be having, like, the needs and helping them suits us. Unless they, and I trail off, well, do something you don't like. No casual neglect. I don't find myself dreaming of things where I am suddenly some horrible person doing some horrible thing to someone else, or I don't dream of having all sorts of horrible things happen to me, except for times when I'm in a video game and things aren't exactly going nicely. But it's understood. Somehow it's understood, and it's always a video game. It's not bad things happening in reality. I don't dream of being lost. I dream of flying. Using my hands to fly. I go on to say, not casual neglect. I could not find my other. Could I not find my otherwise awareness self? Like if I'm dreaming, if everyone in this reality is doing the dreaming, and is all just me as a god dreaming whatever else, the beings experiencing there is chance that one of the people in the entire reality is that God who didn't keep the idea of I will forget as I dream that I am a God with all of my knowledge and information. Instead, I'm just going to dream and I'll have lucid dreaming and I have full control over everything. So a person such as that would be like a complete God, capable of doing all sorts of things. We never experience that person. Because if I were to ever wake up, and I believe a lot of good-natured people in the universe, the entire universe, for the most part, as it has always been said, if you unto your own brethren, your brothers, your sisters, your friends, the ones who you care about, you're not going to give them stone when they ask for bread. You're not going to give them a snake when they ask for shelter. These concepts are everywhere. The majority of people would rather help the people that they care about. And it's the fact that you can't just bypass that feeling inside of you. So if you had the ability at any point in time, people like who have passed on, supposedly woken up, been able to return to their ability to then know everything that they've experienced and then be able to possibly come back and continue the dream as a person with possible influence, they would never choose to not have the knowledge. I don't think that the number of them would choose to not have the knowledge, to not have the capacity of influence and the ability to make things better, to cure cancer, to destroy disease, to destroy poverty, to create energy that we would otherwise not normally have, and make things better in ways that are super for the sake of literally the rest of us. And there's this whole idea of, okay, maybe there is this, maybe
outrageous things. And at some point in the game,
maybe there's this idea of the contract of dreamers, where don't interfere with the rest of what everyone else wants to experience, because when you mess with it, with your god powers, you're spoiling the game. Just let the game be played. No god modding. No, you know, what's the word for it when you go in Dungeons and Dragons and stuff and you do stuff? Metagaming. Don't do that. That's another thing that people already have an idea of what it is like to do and to have all those different functions. So would you have those rules, and would you really have 0 people not break those rules? Then you would think if the JFK was to try to make things better, the JFK assassination was to try to make things normal. I talked about once, if COVID was a button that I had to press, I wouldn't fucking press it. Because I don't have a scope of how it can do things. Apparently, COVID had an effect on something that ended up making something better. I don't remember the details, but that freaks me out. It shakes my core of belief in reality being objective. I can't deny that if there is some kind of potential good here and there, that if the good is significant enough, what buttons are people willing to press? Does it really matter in the end? Would you just not, like, you sacrifice a certain amount of people and you know that you're going to create a better tomorrow for someone, if not possibly everyone. And the question is, who has the buttons? Who's pressing these? Would you be willing? How far are we able to go? Is any of this in control of anyone? Why? What is the justification for all of the neglect? It's not just one thing, it's everything. It's the fact that coal power is stupid and it shouldn't have been a part of history in the first place. We could have lived without coal power and moved on to the next. It was a stepping stone to the next, but it wasn't a necessary step. We could have done other things. Eventually, solar panels would have just been understood, and we would have been able to work only and always with solar panels in mind, and batteries could have been mechanical, and they would have never been lithium, and they would never explode, ruining a bunch of phones and some early stage EV vehicles. People with all sorts of cancers are that way because the person who says the agreement is never to be violated is like, no, we're going to allow that to happen, and we have Technoblade. Out of all the different people who die of different cancers, one of them was Technoblade. Would I like the universe to not have Technoblade? No. Does that mean that I'm pro-cancer? That's not a no. It's not an easy answer. It's not an easy thing to answer. It's a crazy question to think that if you have these things, the things that you want to remove, and then you look at all of the, can you find any good ever? And is there something that you would absolutely be able to say, no, I can't stop that from happening because I'm too clinging to this? What is the limit? Which buttons are you going to press? The trolley problem is pointless. It's thoughtless. It has everything to do with trying to think of the betterment of maybe yourself or the whole world, but you don't really deeply think about any trolley problem. No one thinks deeply, or they think too much into the trolley problem and they don't have the full scope. It's not the same. I don't. The ideals of not wanting any suffering in the world versus there would never be a Technoblade. There would never, don't want rape in the world, but then you would realize you would end up not having there are certain people who are the children of the people who were raped, and they went on to do normal lives or be helpful, like James Robinson. He's a result of unplanned, forced, unsolicited, unwanted, whatever scenario. Would it be wrong to rid the universe of him? And then that entire concept makes everything gray. Everything is gray. There's no black and white. Because you can say, oh, I don't... Like, Doctor Who says he never wants to ever use a gun. He used a gun to destroy a crystal. Because the tool for the right function, you may not have killed anyone, but a gun is just another tool. People die anyway. If you're going to try to make anything better, you want to do the least amount of bad. So you end up thinking, okay, I won't use any guns, but maybe I'll use tasers, maybe I'll hit someone over the head, maybe I'll put them all into danger, maybe I won't destroy the Daleks because I need the Daleks in order to destroy someone else later on in the future, or stop them from causing more harm. And I don't destroy my best friend and he makes the Cybermen. The best friend who genuinely later on goes on to do good things, but in the earlier days, he made the Cybermen. So that's science fiction. And this is a video I removed from history, and it came back. Meaning something is leading me towards this greater knowledge, this other information. Even if I removed it from my history, it's still something that I can't just avoid. Because it sends me into this mental state. It sends me into this whole questioning everything, finding the gray scenarios, finding every single thing that if I could force the world into what I assume it is the best thing, and then find the one or two, or imagining all the different things, freaking Black Plague or whatever the fuck else. What's the result of that could possibly be good? I can't even imagine, because I can't think in those, in that entire history. I don't know. I can't think of anything that was good from it at all. Would I eradicate it? Probably. But I wasn't there. But if I could have been around then I would have experienced then, and I would have immediately, because I just woke up because I died from the fucking Black Plague. Why would I not then go back in and be like, you know what, fuck that shit, and remove it? What if then I dream that I have the cure for the Black Plague? And then it finally gets around to it. It was as fast as I could do because I couldn't die fast enough. I didn't think, oh, I need to die fast enough so that I can become then the cure in my next life. I thought, oh fuck, this sucks. And it wasn't me thinking it, clearly. It was other people. Everyone. Every single person did not go and die and then become a new person. And like, it wasn't an entire generations of, sometimes it is generations of people who had entire lepers. These aren't things that are just the cure is found and then we put it into the next generation and who then ends up growing up to become the person who cures it. It's people who already existed. But you could dream you're someone who grew up and was born earlier in the whole series. You don't have to be born, like, you could have ended up being anyone. You are, according to this, you're everyone. So anyone. As long as you choose, okay, one of the times I'm going to be alert and aware and I have the cure and I do the thing, but then you only solve one thing that you were aware of because it was recent. Time doesn't matter because time, you can look through all of the different times and then experience it, but then you also end up choosing to go into a dream to do the thing. It's the entire mental process. This is why I tag it concept of Hyperion. I want it to be known. This is me. Specifically, this is me. Besides the fact that it's my channel, this is me. Someone who existed before Simon Tracer was Concept Hyperion. The one who strikes you with ideas that are lasting and eternal. The Eon part of the concept and the Viper. Although Concept Viper is also a car and Eon is just my tag, whatever. We can go in and out of reasons for that. So if we consider everyone who had the dream of the past universe, it takes 100 years before they possibly die. And for some of them who have insight and unfortunately die early, they are able to then possibly be reincarnated with all the information that they need and the wisdom and understanding to contemplate it and get it correct and then go in and be made again, and they've had enough time to become the next generation. Only some of them. A brain having only so much ability to process things and iterate on it and then have their own sets of ideas, and then as they use up the mind of this generation and they're like, okay, let's write that down, die, come back, have new clean slate and ability to process, a fresh pair of eyes, and do it all over again with the capacity to maybe have a better position in the world, to maybe actually influence something for once instead of just sitting on my couch doing nothing, making no change. Do you think I would, if I could, do you think if I was ever a god in a previous life, do you think I would not have ambition? To try and put, like Markiplier, I could try and push towards forcing everything so that things don't go badly. Why would I in this life decide to make everything not go badly? Even though this life versus Markiplier's are running in parallel, I'm almost the same age as him. I'm older. achieve so much less. It's like how if you play a video game, you put in a lot of effort into figuring out what that game is. You've solved all of that, and then every so often you just want to play a game that's like a clicker game. Something that's simple, something that doesn't require your mind to do a lot. The whole thing just feels weird. So why is this part 2? Where's part 1? Maybe it's in my past life. It's not. I clearly have not seen this video in my previous channel. Because it's only this year when it was made. My previous channel died in 2023. I could have even seen this in my previous life. 2.3 million views. Hi. Look familiar? I'm back. I'd rather dream about all of this than have the weight of every freaking thing on my goddamn head, because the weight of everything sucked. It's a bit. I'm not him. Reincarnated. But I did write about being a god, and I was that for 10,000 years, and I decided to not be a god anymore. And I still lived for another 1.4 million years in my story that I wrote when I was 8. Or I lived for... The thing is, I lived for 75 million years. Or it's, no, 750,000 years. And then for another... Doing literal... I could have, and I have existed in that story multiple times throughout the entire history, so I am even multiple characters simultaneous. This whole concept is something I wrote about when I was in high school, because I have Simon Treese and maybe even 5 other or 6 other iterations of myself, all existing in the same time frame, as well as in different time frames. Although that's me using my time manipulative abilities to be able to go forward and backward in time. It's different. It's where I, as a regular individual, although I do have God powers, because I have in the story Simon or Martin Tones was able to Professor Ram in one lifetime. Professor Ram and Martin Tones both lived simultaneously, both working on the idea of nanotech in the same time period. They both worked on it, and they both worked on separate functions of it. One of them worked on the nanotech in general, and the other one worked on using nanotech to make alchemy and the ability to manipulate matter. And here I am talking about use sound to use in your reactors so your alchemy machines are able to actually function correctly. But I didn't think of that when I was 8, or I didn't think of that in high school. I thought about sound later. But I knew I'd be working in alchemy. Alchemy's always been a passion of mine. Because literally, if you have all the parts, you should be able to manipulate literally any type of thing into any type of thing. There's nothing that can stop you from doing that. If you just have all the parts, the protons, the neutrons, you make the bundle, you separate them from all of the other bits, and then you recombine them into whatever other parts you want to have, and you can just make anything. That means that a clump of iron the size of a hair can become the world's most potent stink. Or it can become glass. Or it can become watermelon. Or it can become... I'm not joking. That's how physics works. You just have protons, neutrons, you mix them up, and then you have the different parts. That's why we're able to take helium, turn it into helium-2, helium-deuterium, helium-3, tritium, and we're able to do that already multiple different ways. And apparently, that can be done in a goddamn bottle system with some electrodes and stuff. Otherwise known as cold fusion, which people deny having happened, but it's the fact that they're focused on the idea of making power with it, and then they forget that they actually don't need to focus on making power when they could just make whatever materials they want, and you can make an entire factory for making the material. You don't need a nuclear reactor to do it. And you can use all these other materials to make things happen. It's like a chemical reaction, but it's not chemical. It is still nuclear because you're working with the atomic particle itself, not molecules and chemicals. There's a difference. That's why it's not chemistry, it's nuclear chemistry. But it's still chemistry. It's not molecular chemistry, it's atomic or nuclear chemistry. And someone said that me saying, someone in a comment, and I'm stuck on this, he called me stupid. He said I was dense. I'm not dense. Oh! My acoustic levitation comment exists! Yay! I thought it was deleted. Somehow it was missing for like the last video, and now here we are looking at it. There it is. I did not reforge it. It was there. It has been there. It just didn't load the previous time I looked. Everything's here. Thank you. Clearly, if you no knowledge, dude, literally just look up acoustic levitation. Bro, I'm not stupid. Neutrons are neutral, duh. Nothing can, not even tungsten can hold neutrons. Again, everything's made of neutrons and protons and electrons. You are nothing but 1/3 neutron and a lot of empty space, but that doesn't matter. The point is, and sound works by electrostatic repulsion between electrons. No, sound is just pressure waves, and the means of the pressure waves being able to make sound, like, it might be that there is Yeah, electrostatic repulsion is why things bump against each other. And that's why, but you can still, again, use sound or pressure waves in some way that you can control where neutrons are. And when you do that, the neutrons won't just be flying off, breaking your reactor. They're going to recombine with the other hydrogen that you're working with, and you'll have a better consistently running reactor that will be able to do all sorts of reactions. And then you can do, if you want to, you could do fission, and in another machine you can do fusion. It can be a cyclic system that can do fusion fission as many times as you want, using the same material over and over again, gaining power all the time, using just 1 cup of water. You can just do that forever. And if you do it right, you can do that forever. It will never run out. But you're not doing it right. TLDR, learn real physics, even basic physics, and stop spewing utter nonsense. You have no idea what you're talking about. Like, you do have, like, you're probably not wrong about electrostatic repulsion, and that the only reason why you don't have things truly, but you have to realize there's sound in a star, right? You're not using electrostatic repulsion in a star. There's still sound. The amount of heat in a star is so great, the electrons are on the outside of the entire damn thing. There aren't electrons inside the star doing their things. It's a plasma. The electrons are outside doing crazy stuff. So that's why, again, you have the ability to get fusion to happen, because the hotter and hotter the materials get, the less electrons, or the more motion everything has, and you can push the electrons out of the way. Maybe you do still have electrons in there, but then you have neutron stars. Neutron stars, gravity itself can hold neutrons, which means something out there is able to hold neutrons besides just it being in a nuclear atomic assembly. An atom, with the protons doing their thing. And the whole idea of sound on the order of nuclear explosions, I don't care how powerful you think the sound needs to be. We're talking about manipulating things on the atomic scale, and if you need sound equal to nuclear explosions, I don't care. Like, obviously take precautions and not have people just be around that, so you end up with brain hemorrhages and stuff. Don't do that. That can happen. But you can direct the sound to make standing waves in a liquid. The fact that you have those standing waves means that everything is mostly going to stay in those packets. And if you control it enough, with enough tiny speakers in a whole area, then the entire reactor is just a bunch of packets of standing waves. The rest can be manipulated with the electromagnetic field, and then you have the neutrons just sitting there, forced into merging with whatever parts we want to merge with the micro tweezers that we have of electromagnetic fields and the sound waves. The thing is that we're not doing it with frequencies that we think can control everything on the tiniest scales, but I've seen a sound be able to control a bunch of dust that can make a hologram into the shape of a rabbit. I don't need to hear all this nonsense about I don't know what I'm talking about. He said nothing about acoustic levitation. I'm not dumb. And he did not continue to respond. Because, of course, why would you? If you know that someone is stuck in their ways, like I am, and I'm not wrong, there are probably so many more than 3 types of pressure waves: sound, magnets, and gravity. And gravity is just a bigger version of sound. It's on the order of magnitude where you're working with the electromagnetic field itself instead of the substance of matter, and the magnetic stuff is more close range. And magnetic fields, you say that the magnetic field is way stronger than the gravitational field, but you're not realizing it's the same thing. It's just that the magnetic field is more concentrated. And the standard gravitational field, first of all, it's not all gravitational field. A regular mass has a certain amount of electromagnetic field transfer that goes in and out of the entire mass throughout the whole thing. It's part of the reason we have lightning in the first place. Not the full reason, but it's part of the reason. It's definitely the reason we have a freaking EM field covering our planet. That's for sure. So when you have that crazy EM field, and it's from a core inside of a planet surrounded by a bunch of hot rocks, and that is making the EM field that surrounds the planet like a big old energy shield, which is literally what we have, besides the ozone layer. Like, it feels a bit extreme and crazy to think that that's how things are working, but that is how things are working. So yeah, magnetism was way more powerful than standard gravity. That's because gravity is based off of, or the gravity of any given planet is based off of its spin and motion through space. That's what gravity is. But then you also have the gravity that connects Jupiter to the Sun, and that's an EM field connection. And I will never be permitting anyone to supposedly try to prove otherwise, saying it's the bending of space-time, when the bending of space-time is a goddamn myth. And it's their best understanding of it, and it's the best that they can come up with, but it's not accurate. It's not complete. It doesn't actually work. But the electromagnetic field being everywhere, manipulating everything, that is true. That does happen. That is how it is. It's interesting to think that a sonic screwdriver will eventually become a real thing, because we will have the ability to use overlapping frequencies to control on any scale any amount of force that we want to emit into and pinpoint to a specific point out in space. So if we want to have a droplet of water be held here and then just change the frequencies and it starts rising up, and change the frequencies and it goes down, that's a sonic screwdriver. We can get it so precise that we can control the tiny things. So if you had a very complex sonic screwdriver, you would be emitting sound, and it would have so many different emitters, and it would have so many different frequencies, and really you only need to have tiny little tuning forks to be making the sound directed wherever you want it to be. And the directions of that are like a cup that would fluctuate in different forms so that you can choose exactly where it's reflected to. So then you would be able to control and modulate the frequency and the amplitude of the sound, mostly the frequency, with the tiniest amplitude, and you'd still end up with basically the ability to make the standing waves so that it's stuck here and then you can move it there. But because of the different amounts of frequencies, you have multiple controls of multiple areas in space simultaneously. That's a sonic screwdriver, and that's freaking actual tech. It's just slightly in the future. But we're getting there. That's the fascinating thing. We will get there. We will eventually control neutrons with sound. There's no reason we can't. Or we will more greatly be able to manipulate the amount of space that they are able to go through, because currently we have reactors that have everything being jostled in a violent way, and if we could muffle it all so everything is forced to stay still, mostly, and only move the parts we want to move, then the sudden jolt from the neutron having a reaction of bombastic deconstruction of it being removed from the protons that's holding it. Like, you could just be more subtle about it, you could be more finesse about it, and you could do fusion and fission and whatever you want to do with alchemy with zero concern over, like, you're not going to produce fast moving neutrons if you know what you're doing, if you have that much control over it. We never had. We're always working with very much whatever the heck could work, whatever is the most of what can work. But there are gentler methods. There are easier things that can happen with less or more amounts of power. The main thing is you get the result. Different materials. And in space, if you have that amount of power, because you can just take the power from whatever radiation you have outside, or whatever radiation, like, if you can literally make whatever material, imagine fabricating uranium out of an asteroid, and all it takes is whatever asteroid you have, turning that into uranium. But then you also, the thing is, there's a shaker reactor. So there's this interesting thing that if you're able to pull quarks, which there are 3 quarks per proton and 3 quarks per neutron, but if you have just 2 quarks and you somehow apply enough force that they can separate from each other, somehow, the 2 of them, independently of each other, will literally rip out parts of the fabric of the universe, otherwise known as virtual particles, and they will just form new quarks, and you'll end up with 2 pairs instead of 2 that you started with. And if you can just shake that thing fast enough at a high enough frequency so that they are coming apart, making a pair, coming back together, emitting quarks because they can't all hold together. And if you keep on shaking it at a high enough frequency, you can fill a cubic meter of hydrogen in like minutes. You can just generate whatever material you want. And after you have that material, then you can just go and collect it all, crunch it all, make whatever other thing you need to make. And then you have like tons of these emitters, tons of these quarks just making things literally out of thin air. Technically. At that point, you're just strumming on a tuning fork for the entire universe, making whatever material it is that you want to make out of it. You can have like a tiny little, all it takes, a tiny little box, the size of a button on the side of your phone, or the size of the button on the side of a watch. Tiny little button. That button can have, well, it probably can't have the power supply, but it can have all the machinery necessary to make those quarks separate. Because they're really freaking tiny. Why do you think you need like an entire huge machine to manipulate these tiny things? You don't. The order of magnitude is insane. So all you need is a tiny little button on your watch, that size of a thing, or just one screw that's in the watch. Screws are even smaller. And that can be the thing that is small enough to manipulate matter such that you, if you wanted to, you can separate the quarks, just keep them vibrating, keep them separating, keep on making more quarks. Because of this weird thing where you make a new set of quarks every time they separate. But then you combine them again. Separating the ones that you just made. And then you combine all of them together to make protons. Change them from protons and neutrons, like decay them into whatever format you wanted them to be, and have electrons, however the hell you make those. It's interesting to know that quarks are not the same as electrons. Because clearly they can't be. But it's curious. And again, if you just have these parts, and if they're able to be made like that, then all you need is a little jar. And that little jar is a thing, this tiny little jar, size of a jube, is enough that it will constantly be able to make matter. And then that matter is able to be put into another thing. So if you could have a massive array of these buttons or screws, and you would make all the matter you ever need, and then you would have those go into a condenser, go into a different reactor, a different kind of interaction thing that then makes the matter into whatever other type of matter that you need. You want plates? We can make plates. You want a fork? We can make a fork. You want your phone battery parts? We can make your phone battery parts. Right? You want new neurons? We can make neurons. There's no reason we can't. That's why the idea of taking a clump of dirt and turning it into an eye is actually not as impossible as you think it is if you have complete control over matter. No reason why not. Oddly enough, the dirt in the eye is like you're trying to say that it isn't the body that just decided, hey, it's dirt in there, and it makes a reaction and says it needs to fill that space with matter. And then those space can... It's a lot easier to think that you then change those cells from basic cells into the types of cells that can become anything, and then just say that they will become an eyeball. Because how else does your body make eyeballs? I mean, they just do. Because they had cells that differentiated and turned into eyeball, and nervous system, and blood, and the jelly inside of the eye. And it all formed, and now you have an eyeball, which is crazy piece of tech that can see stuff with cones and whatever. Why would you not be able to do that? It's a lot easier to control the body's systems and all those different functions. You can think of all the different gates and things about how, like, if you have certain chemical reactions, sodium transfers and whatever, you end up with neurons firing and all that. You end up with the right code for how to make a thing, and then you suddenly start making a brand new heart for yourself if you want to, and then build it up. And then eventually, when your heart fails, you have this new heart. You recombine the heart valves and everything, so that instead of using your old heart, which is gone, to now you have a new heart. But of course, you don't need to do that as one part replaces another part. You can just replace each of you can replace each of the individual cells of the heart. You don't have, so you can just have new heart cells instead of the entire component. So it's not like you need an entire bone or whatever else to fix your arm or your leg or whatever else. You can use whatever is already there and just add more bone to it, and then you have more bone on your bone. And you can now make more blood because you have a more healthy bone that does the thing with the marrow and all of that. I have a pudding I need to eat. The pudding. But imagine being the dreamer. Because if it's not one type of weird commentary on life.
Suppose you're God.
I don't have to suppose. fucking uncanny, though. But, I mean, not exactly. Part of the hair is different, the shape of the hairline and everything is different. Who cares? But it's silly. I'm not him.
For example, dream yourself in situations of extreme poverty, disease, agony. You could, as it were, work on the
Contemplating one's own existence. Having the foresight knowing that if I could if it was possible, I would affect everything so that, like, obviously, why would I not have an existence where I have the absolute ability to make everything better? If I was sure I had the potential of it, if I knew the methods, I don't think I would have ever been slacking. I would have been like, well, I know how to make money. Boom, I know how to make money. And then I have it. And then I am Steve Jobs. And then I am George Lucas. Or I am freaking Mr. X. And what's his face? Freaking the Beast, Jimmy, and use all those different bits of functioning influence to affect change as much as I can, or to generate as much power as I need so that I have the ability in literally all of the wealthy people they could and they have and they can then put some of their effort towards benefiting something in their life. I've always wanted to be able to be a philanthropist capable of giving money towards whatever thing that needs the money. Literally anything. There's this theory I had at some point about money that if you were to make an account big enough that the interest rate is enough that you can live off of, and if you have the ability to do small jobs or whatever big jobs. The thing is, I don't have the ability to do those jobs, or else I lose all of it. But if you wouldn't lose it, if you're guaranteed that you would have it, and it's because you have this interest rate, then you would also have the ability to build up on it. And as much as you don't spend the one time, you're able to then have a greater amount of interest rate, and you could have more in the savings and then more able to be used next year for either yourself or to increase yourself. And also it can go on to affect everyone and anyone else that you want it to affect. Once you have enough that you can build a second of one of those accounts, then you would just have that. And then the next person would have that same account to do whatever else. And if it were to continue like that, and eventually all the money in the world is in bank accounts capable of being used by the people to make the projects that they want to do, whatever the banks do with the money. But then you also flood that money in so much that you can easily just keep on pumping in more, keep on making more accounts, keep on having more people who have steady state, uncontested, like there's no tax, there's none anything else. It's all, there is enough money invested, there is enough money in everyone's pocket, and there is enough money everywhere else. You don't need to think about anything else. And then you just have the jobs that you have, which you will never end up homeless, but you will always have the opportunity to do the job, instead of where we are right now, where I have a limited opportunity. I would lose my benefits, and I would end up most likely, because of my lack of function, not being able. You see how I've been up since midnight because I can't sleep. Because I had a damn nap. I hate naps. I say that I hate naps because it grants me a time throughout the entire night where I am forced to be doing pretty much either only entertaining myself or contemplation. It's not me doing life's things. It's not me doing work. And then when I have the next day where I need to be doing the work, I'm not prepared to do the work. So I can only have so much prep time of hopefully I get enough sleep to be able to be ready for the next day and not be totally screwed up by the time it comes around to me needing to work, and also stuff I need to do later tonight and stuff I need to do in an hour from now. And this whole thing is crazy. And I don't like it. And I wish it wasn't the way that it is. And I don't know how to fix it. And I'm being murdered. And I can't reach out to anyone. And I'm having to rebuild from the beginning. And I'm being forced into different variations of limbo and having to exist anyway. And having to reach out to other people and expand. So I end up making TikToks about drinks, or I end up making an Instagram that has a lot of pretty fun pictures. And then people end up liking that stuff, and then maybe they'll end up coming over here and seeing my playing video games or the psychology and science that I present to the table. But the problem is, the contemplations that I have are so far detached. It would take reaching everyone to hope that the people who actually understand what I'm talking about and aren't so stuck in their own ways that they can actually move past relativity and say, you know what, that guy was wrong. And it's okay. Science is always about learning. It's fine to admit when people are wrong about stuff. We were wrong about the orbits of the planets. They're not circles, they're ellipses. We're wrong about the orbits of the planets. They're not ellipses, they're wobbly ellipses. They're not just going around, they're also wobbling as they go around. That's crazy. That's reality. We're also going through space at a crazy rate, and we're also going around a galaxy, and that thing is going through space. We're all heading toward the great attractor, but that doesn't matter for another billion years. So, of course, one of these dreams, I would end up just wanting to know literally as much as I possibly can about what is actually happening and center myself around. Even if it's a mess, it is definitely distinctly myself. There's no confusing me and my situation here. Like, I have so many plushies. I have so many plushies. No one else has my collection, my specific collection of plushies. By the way, this bitch. Hi, Jax. I got him. He's awesome. I have the maid Jax. I want to get the other Jax and Pomni combined plushie because, hey, the shipping wars are going to happen. We might as well make a plushie about it. Where you have Jax literally having Pomni inside of his mouth. God, that's hilarious. I don't hate the job I'm doing. I just wish that I had the assurity of my own faculties and abilities to be able to do it without, like, ruining myself. How far could I actually push myself if I actually was able to be confident enough that I can actually push myself? It took me so long to be able to go from thinking I don't have any value whatsoever and then finally go and do the food bank. And then it took me a few more years, and then I finally got into work, 2017. And then I finally started using a trimmer at that job. Or I end up having so much strength that I'm moving an entire bag, which is a car-sized tarp full of leaves, and I just bring it over to the truck myself. Normally people would take 4 people to do that, and I'm just doing it myself. I'm not complacent. I'm always trying to progress myself. I don't know whether or not I should eat this pudding because I am going to have breakfast soon, but I need to have something in me. Pudding's not much. Just means I don't need to buy as much when I go out, which is better. Why not? I imagine when I'm as old as him, I'm gonna look like him. And I wouldn't hate that. He looks okay. He looks pretty freaking good for his age. Holy crap. It's the thing about, like, people talk about having certain drug experiences, but only in the right conditions. You don't want to have it when your brain is forming. You don't want to have it when if it's too much. And you don't want to have it without, like, with all the other considerations, like, again, people talk about, oh, they could maybe faint and they're fine. If I faint, I might seize. I don't like that. That's my flaw. I don't normally faint. It's like once every 3 years or less often than that. It's not frequent at all. It's not periodic. It's just, it has happened sometimes. But if I do faint, it's not good. And I'd rather stay awake. Or I'd rather get the sleep that I properly need so that I'm well rested and I don't end up crashing. So I take care of myself. I don't faint. So I don't end up screwed up. I'm very addicted to chocolate. And I love cheese. I just don't buy a lot of cheese and eat a ton of cheese all the time. But I do like cheese. Tell me in the comments if you like cheese. Toodles!